Hey Falcons fans! Here's the latest Atlanta Falcons news and rumors. Here I keep you updated daily on everything that's happening behind the scenes. Today's topic is something that's really stirring up the fan base, so let's get into the details. Be sure to hit that like button and let's get to it. The Atlanta Falcons haven't had a dominant pass rusher in almost a decade, and if you don't believe that, let this sink in. The last time Atlanta had a player with 10 or more sacks was in 2016. When Vic Beasley had 15.5 sacks. And now enters Leonard Floyd, the veteran edge rusher who just signed with Atlanta and has a simple goal for 2025, to set a new career sack record. Floyd's best season to date was in 2020 with the Rams, where he had 10.5 sacks, and at 32 years old, he believes he's playing his best football. Falcons fans should be excited, but even if Floyd only gets 10 sacks, it would be historic, because not only would he be the first Falcon to reach double digits in nearly a decade, but he would also be one of the oldest players in NFL history to do so. Only 5 players over the age of 33 have posted a 10-sack season since 2017: Julius Peppers, J.J. Watt, Kyle Van Noy, Brandon Graham, and Cam Hayward. If Floyd joins that list, it wouldn't just be a good signing, it would be a franchise-changing one. But here's where things get even more interesting. Floyd didn't hesitate to sign with Atlanta. In his press conference, he revealed that when his agent told him the Falcons made an offer, his response was simple: "All right, that's the end of it." No second thoughts, no hesitation, he wanted to be here. His mom was even more excited than him, saying she was in tears when she got the news. That's the kind of energy you want on your defense, a guy who actually wants to be in Atlanta. And let's be clear, Floyd isn't a long-term solution. But what he does is give Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot flexibility in the draft. Going into free agency, the Falcons' biggest needs were pass rusher, cornerback, and safety, and they've now addressed all 3. Floyd fills a huge gap in the pass rush, Mike Hughes adds depth at corner, and Jordan Fuller brings stability to the secondary. That means the Falcons can truly go best player available at pick 15, instead of reaching for a need. And here's the name that just keeps rising up the board for me: Jalen Walker. At first, I wasn't completely sold on the Georgia linebacker, mostly because I viewed him as more of an inside linebacker than a true edge rusher. But after going back and studying his tape, I've completely changed my mind. Walker isn't just a linebacker, he's a playmaker, a defensive weapon, and the exact kind of tone setter this defense needs. Just look at what he did when he became a full-time starter for Georgia in 2024: 6.5 sacks, 60 tackles, and 11 tackles for loss. And if you think he's just another off-ball linebacker, think again. He's got the size, explosiveness, and versatility to become a Micah Parsons-type player, moving between linebacker and pass rusher depending on the situation. And let's be honest, this Falcons defense needs an identity. Right now, it feels like they're starting from scratch, trying to piece together a new era under Raheem Morris. If you want a guy to build around for the next decade, Jalen Walker is that player. Of course, there are other names in the mix at pick 15. Will Johnson, Mike Green, James Pierce Jr., and Mikael Williams are all in play, and my personal rankings are shifting every day. Walker is now pushing for my number 1 spot, ahead of Will Johnson. But it's not locked in yet. So now, I want to hear from you. Who do you want the Falcons to take at pick 15? Should it be Walker, Johnson, Green, Williams, or someone else? Drop your answer in the comments. And here's where things get even more complicated. Because while Jalen Walker is surging up the board, and Will Johnson remains the best corner in the draft, the Falcons are still facing the same major dilemma: pass rusher or best player available? Let's be real, Leonard Floyd is not a long-term answer. He's here to provide stability for a year or 2, but the Falcons still need to find their future at edge rusher. And while Walker has the versatility to be a defensive weapon, there are still pure pass rushers available that could fill that need immediately. That's why Mike Green and Mikael Williams remain 2 of the most intriguing options. Starting with Green, he's the most productive pass rusher in college football last season, finishing with 17 sacks, the most in the country. You can argue about his level of competition at Marshall, but when he faced Ohio State, he was all over the backfield. The biggest concern? He's a one-year wonder, and there's always a risk that his production won't translate to the NFL. On the other hand, Mikael Williams has the prototypical size and skill set to be a dominant edge rusher at the next level. At 6 feet 5 inches, 265 pounds, he's got everything you want in a pass rusher: power, explosiveness, and a relentless motor. The downside? His production at Georgia wasn't as dominant as expected, with only 5 sacks in 2024, but an early ankle injury slowed him down. If he gets fully healthy, he could be a steal at pick 15. And then there's James Pierce Jr., who has been one of the fastest risers in this draft class. He didn't put up jaw-dropping sack numbers at Tennessee, but he's got elite speed off the edge, running a sub-4.5 40-yard dash. If the Falcons want to bet on pure athleticism and upside, Pierce might be their guy. So let's break this down. What should the Falcons actually do? Here are the 3 most likely scenarios. Keycap 1, draft Jalen Walker and build the defense around him. His versatility, athleticism, and playmaking ability could be exactly what Atlanta needs to create an identity on defense. Keycap 2, take Will Johnson and build an elite secondary. If Johnson is still there at 15, how do you pass up on a guy who could be a shutdown corner for the next decade? Pairing him with A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates would immediately make Atlanta's secondary one of the best in the league. Keycap 3, draft a true edge rusher. Whether it's Mike Green, Mikael Williams, or James Pierce Jr., Atlanta still needs a pass rusher for the future. Leonard Floyd is a temporary fix, but the Falcons need a guy who can be their next John Abraham, a consistent force off the edge. This is why pick 15 is a franchise-defining moment. If they get this right, Raheem Morris' defense could be set for years to come. If they miss, it could set them back even further in their rebuild. So now, I want to hear from you. Which scenario do you think is best? Should Atlanta draft Walker and make him the face of the defense? Should they grab Will Johnson and build an elite secondary? Or should they go all in on a pass rusher for the future? And here's the thing, whatever the Falcons decide to do at pick 15, it's going to send a clear message about their vision for this team moving forward. Do they prioritize a dominant pass rush, knowing that's been their biggest weakness for years? Do they build an elite secondary that can lock down the NFC South's top receivers? Or do they take a defensive playmaker like Jalen Walker, someone who doesn't fit a traditional mold but could completely change the way this defense operates? The closer we get to the draft, the more it feels like Jalen Walker is becoming the wild card in all of this. At first, he wasn't viewed as a true edge rusher, but the more you watch him play, the more you realize he might just be the best defensive weapon in this entire class. Think about Micah Parsons. Coming out of Penn State, people debated whether he was a linebacker or a pass rusher. The Cowboys took him, let him develop into both, and now he's one of the most dominant defensive players in the league. Could Walker have a similar impact in Atlanta? Drop your answers in the comments below, and if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe for all the latest Falcons draft coverage. Go Falcons!